We had the Silent Hill 2 remaster, followed by the announcement of Cronos: The New Dawn, Silent Hill F, and even a new Resident Evil coming in 2026. I wasn't really into these types of games until an old friend made me play the Dead Space remaster last year, and this was about how I handled that.
Coconut had other plans.
So, as a newbie with the genre, I was both terrified yet also intrigued to explore Cronos: The New Dawn, especially because it is a brand new IP and thus has a pressure to prove itself. Playing through the game, it's hard not to be confused as hell because it does everything it can to make finding the truth more difficult than landing charged shots on the damn enemies. Which is why in this video, I'm gonna save you the time and explain the full story of Cronos: The New Dawn. You best suit up, stomp that like button, and whatever you do, don't let them merge. Cronos is set in an alternate universe to our own, where technology's evolution appeared a little bit different from our own up through to the 1980s. It was in this time period, the 80s, that a disease we call the Change appeared. We see how the Change took its course only in a narrow scope, contained within the fictional city of New Dawn, which is based on our real-world city in Poland, Nowa Huta. The game gives us only suggestions as to how the Change started, but without super compelling evidence for the specific details. What is heavily hinted at is that the outbreak itself began at the historic New Dawn Steelworks, the largest industrial complex in the country at that point, and one for which the envisioned New Dawn city government was tremendously proud. But that pride would come to be its greatest downfall when faced with an even greater threat. The Change was one of two horrific events that coincided around the same point in time, because alongside the outbreak's beginning, there were reports that people started to go missing. Few knew why or how, but often when the bodies were found of those missing, they had surgical marks in their heads, indicating severe cerebral trauma. But as we'll come to understand, these events of people being killed in such an oddly consistent way were not directly because of the Change itself. When the Change started, it was seen as a plague. Those infected would develop fevers, cold shivers, loss of appetite, and eventually visual and auditory hallucinations, before the most telltale sign: severe eyesight deterioration and a clear change in the look of the afflicted person's eyes. It spread effortlessly, and the government's response was about what you'd expect. They effectively initiated martial law, cracked down on social gatherings, and forced citizens to stay inside and social distance for their safety. All the while, the Polish government did its best to maintain their pride in socialism, but no government could truly prepare itself for this kind of plague. The steelworks factory was the first major place to feel the effects of the Change, and with unions forming, conflict between the government and the people escalated tensions further. Workers were getting sick at an alarming rate, and the main hospital couldn't handle the influx of afflicted patients. Dr. David Zibert was invested heavily in understanding the infection, doing his best to uncover the truth while observing the biological makeup of the Change. But he just couldn't. The disease seemed like a virus, yet it didn't act like one, and Zibert couldn't figure out how it transmitted or mutated. It was as if it had been brought from another world, but nothing would be more clearly otherworldly than what the military and scientists discovered next. What they dubbed the asset. Leadership at the steelworks discovered a kind of infected hive underneath the facility, with bodies and biomass strewn around. And in it, they found a figure wrapped in steel. After this was uncovered by the government, the Polish military quickly seized the man and held him in a cage in the steelworks, recruiting Dr. Zibert and his brightest recent graduate student, Veronika, to help discern what the asset truly was and what significance it had to the outbreak. While it would be easy to assume the Change was somehow brought by this asset, or who Dr. Zibert would later refer to as the Visitor, in the examination process, he came to a striking conclusion.
His molecular structure looks as if he came straight from the beginning of the goddamn universe. Not a trace of disease in him. So, the only thing I can be sure of is that Change does not come from the Visitor.
Where or when the Visitor came from, we don't know, but it seemed as if he wasn't responsible for bringing the Change itself. At first, the entity was cold and robotic in its demeanor, but after interrogation by Veronika, he began to question his own motives. Unsure of whether or not his mission was to save or to harm humanity, all he knew for certain was that he had an objective, what he called his vocation.
What's the point of it all?
I, too, would like to learn that.
As Veronica failed to glean any information the military saw useful, they were preparing to take the asset away, but Dr. Zibbert hastily transported him to a place of worship that his daughter Eliza stayed at, an abbey. Unfortunately, the abbey was infected with the change just like most of its surrounding areas by this time, and it wouldn't be long before no place was safe for human nor visitor. New Dawn, as well as seemingly the world itself, was overrun, with all humans, as far as we're aware, succumbing to the infection in time. The transformed population of humans was given a new name. Much like children abandoned by society, the mutated, barely human-looking creatures that now roamed the destroyed world were known simply as orphans. You'd think that's where our story ends, but, well, time travel's a bitch. We really don't know much at all about the organization known as the Collective, but we do know this. They were responsible for the visitor having shown up at the steelworks. He belonged to their kind, so to speak. They utilized technology from beyond the world we inhabit in most of the game. Manipulating technology built from materials combined across perhaps even multiple worlds, universes, or timelines, the Collective's goal is to pave paths through time to extract souls, or what we call essences, from key individuals, humans, before they were either killed or mutated beyond usefulness. Does the Collective extract individuals only from the world we inhabit in Cronos the New Dawn, or also perhaps from other timelines? That's a question for a sequel game. Nonetheless, the Collective's extraction missions involve sending travelers, these suited-up, cake-having, skull-crushing badasses, into the wastes to pave the path and fulfill their vocation, traveling through rifts at key, anomalous, or distorted points in the apocalyptic world to then go back in time where they can actually accomplish their objective. Sometimes the most they can do is lay the foundations for those who come after, which you can find numerous times along your own journey in the game playing as a traveler. But one thing remains the same amongst them all. They seek to extract. Such is their calling. Now this is where you come in. The beginning of the game dispels some cryptic words of wisdom. Listen to the will of those who will not speak, and if the tools are not willing, they will be. A great way to start the game with a message that thematically aligns with the government's tight grip on the workers, analogous to the literal grip of the Collective on the essences of those lost to time. That's about as philosophical as I'm gonna get for right now, because we have a story to explain. Come on. Designated ND3576, you awake in a kind of metal pod called the sarcophagus. Comforting, I know. After a series of strange flashbacks, you're interviewed by a computer which gives you two answers you can pick at a time, both of which are meaningless and don't affect anything in the game. After you're let out of your restraints, the computer tasks you with your vocation. Find your predecessor, ND3500. He has an anchor, which is rather integral for essence collecting, and he died with it, so you're gonna go find his body, grab the anchor, and continue his mission. But you're gonna need something more than just your fists, right? That's where this fancy relic comes in. Most games give you a gun, but this game gives you a phase-shifting, physics-defying gun, because it's cool. You blast off a broken hinge and pop out of your sarcophagus, taking in the apocalyptic environment that now surrounds you. It is some good amount of time after the fall of humanity, but hey, on the bright side, everything is Christmassy, because it was Christmas Eve when the last people basically died off, so there's that. Right away, the environmental storytelling does its job. You witness countless posters of missing people, propaganda, and life hygiene hacks from the government, as well as letters relaying the heartbreaking circumstances of families torn apart by the isolation. As you journey towards finding your objective, it doesn't take long for something else to find you. The traveler comes face to face with an orphan, a highly aggressive, transformed human with a lust for one thing: to merge. After you put it down, you continue through the wastes, eventually coming to learn a key fact about the orphans. Sure, you can kill them, but in a way, a dead orphan can be more dangerous than a live one, because when in the presence of orphaned bodies, living ones will seek to merge with their fallen brethren, and if that happens, they reinforce their own bodies, becoming significantly harder to then kill. After finding a little base of operations, one of many you'll come to discover set up by previous travelers, you find the predecessor, well, a piece of him, along with a new module relic attached to your gun that allows you to interact with anomalies, most of which involve strange gravity-defying, stalker-like obstacles. And here's our boy.
Predecessor, ND3500 reached. The anchor is intact. Well done. I will carry on where you left off.
You download the predecessor's data and find out that his objective was to extract the essence from a target named Edvard Wisniewski, After grabbing the fallen anchor, a pivotal tool required for you to return back to this point in time once you slip into the past for extraction, you head to D3, a nearby apartment complex where the rift can be found. The rifts have a characteristic yellow glow to them and distort the gravity of everything in their radius. They're effectively a type of anomaly. Once you fight your way through the area, solving puzzles and uncovering new, more advanced orphans along the way, you get to the rift and force your anchor into the floor before entering the fracture in time. Once transported, you're standing in the 80s in a rundown yet undestroyed apartment. This is your target, Edward's apartment. It doesn't take long to realize this guy likes playing loud music, and apparently he knows about your kind. That's not good, right? Bro's uncovering some crazy top secret shit, or he's just crazy. Probably a mix of both. Once you leave his apartment, it becomes obvious that the time you've been transported to appears to be right before the collapse of the country. The city of New Dawn is on lockdown. You can hear citizens whispering in their homes as you step through the familiar apartment building that traded being crumbled for being now liminal. Following clues as to Edward's whereabouts, you discover orphans underneath one of the apartment complexes. Clearly, hives are already starting to form. Before too long, you find a key to a bunker that Edward's hiding out in, and entering the place, we find someone, though it's not who we were looking for.
Ah! Stay away from me!
Vishnevsky, where is he?
Keep her hands off her, you! I was right all along! I knew you were real! Angela, stop! What are you doing?
I should never have come here with you.
No,
Let
Angela!
her go. She can't be saved.
Ah! What are you doing?
Preserving.
Edward is clearly a bit of a strange man, and after hearing enough of his bullshit, you figure it's about time to scrape out his soul. After extracting your first essence, you return through the rift by reaching the anchor point you had set down before. That whole process of entering the rift, extracting the person, and leaving is something you'll come to repeat a good few more times. But before we can, we need to learn something from our new friend. We head to our sort of base of operations in a subway station that we charted previously and interact with a terminal required to launch something called the Ascendance Sequence, which will allow us to upload the essence to the collective. But see, something goes wrong. Instead of uploading it, we enter our phylactery, or in other words, the empty brain that travelers are made with in order to absorb, temporarily or not, the essences of their targets. In an alternate world, we see Edward and interrogate him for answers as to our next objective. He mentions something about the Steelworks and a certain Artur Baraka, before suddenly the simulation goes horribly wrong and malfunctions. We awaken sitting in a chair, dazed. Stumbling out of the rather comforting room, confused, we find out that we're not alone.
You almost fried there. Good thing I was around. How are you holding up?
The Warden is a strange one, not dissimilar from yourself. You learn that he saved you from getting fried during the Ascendance sequence, and on top of that, you learn that the two of you are the last remaining travelers, because somehow the collective stopped sending your kind. According to the Warden, he's been alone for quite some time, and his job was to aid others like you. A little sus, but he seems nice enough. He hands you your now repaired anchor, and when you mention your next target being Artur Baraka at the Steelworks, he perks up, elaborating that it would be too dangerous to reach on foot, but restoring power to the tram in Station A would allow you to more safely reach it. He gives you a little shoulder tap, which is easily the most emotionally stimulating gesture your character has experienced thus far, before you set off on your next mission, reach the Steelworks. Station A is hard as shit, especially because the game does not pull its punches, but once you power everything on and enter the tram, it's time to head to the Steelworks. You arrive at the decrepit, derelict factory, the raging dust storm, accompanied by eerie, looming clouds overhead that make it obvious that you really shouldn't be here. Nonetheless, you press on, finding a predecessor's base of operations, along with a clear view of the dive point. You're going to need some gravity traversal equipment, and after searching the infected factory, you find another one of your fallen kind, promptly yoinking his gravity boots. These allow you to go full dead space, traversing to new areas by walking along walls and ceilings between making gravity-defying leaps across huge gaps. Once you reach the dive point, you enter your second rift. Back in the 80s, we're met with the steelworks before it became fully overrun, and right off the bat, you stumble into the containment area for the so-called visitor I mentioned before that Dr. Zibbert and Veronica were responsible for studying. After leaving the containment room, you run into a person, none other than Veronica herself. She tries to hide what she's been doing at the steelworks before running off and you give chase. We then learn that the steelworks at this point is about as dangerous as it was back in the future time because holy shit, they're everywhere! Military shows up, everything's going to shit, and you enter the game's second main boss fight, which wouldn't be nearly as annoying as it was for me if it weren't for the fact that the cutscene that played right after it bugged my game several times, requiring me to restart, which meant that it continued from the autosave directly before the boss fight. Each time, I had to kill this thing like 5 times. After slaying the little goober, you come face to face with your target, Artur Baraka, who's standing right next to his brother, Gabriel Baraka. See, Gabriel is clearly in the late stages of the infection. Dr. Zibbert had taken the steelworks employee to the hospital for potential treatment, and eventually Artur up and helped Gabriel escape, trying to get him away from everything. Though bringing him to the steelworks of all places, I'm not sure what he was trying to accomplish there. Artur asks you to help him, and when you coldly respond that nothing will change fate, he insists that you are the reason that the change happened. Then he contorts his face into skibidi toilet metahuman nightmare fuel and forces you to make a swift decision. Stop Artur from taking the shot or end Gabriel's suffering. Basically, you can either extract Artur's essence or Gabriel's. Once you make your choice, you return to the future and take the tram back to the station. But upon arriving, we hear music.
The bar is closed, but I don't think anyone will ask us to leave. Come, join me.
Bro is all about that art appreciation. Clearly you, the traveler, are not having any of it as you resist the thought of admiring humanity's imperfection, their ambition to spend time doing things for the purpose of the experience instead of the result. The warden's philosophy bleeds through his words, juxtaposed with the cold, faceless bodies that you both occupy. Ironically, throughout the game, you have several opportunities to interact with cats that give you rewards for finding them, upon which the traveler usually says something akin to GLaDOS's dry, yet oddly human quips.
Who is an exceptionally handsome specimen? Yes, you are.
But let's get back to the main topic at hand. Your next objective is to find a switchgear to allow the Ascendant sequence to be turned on again, and once you do, you sit your ass down and activate the thing. If you chose James Sunderland, Gabriel, like I did, you talk to him and he reveals some key information.
We searched for the missing workers under the main furnace. We found them, but their bodies... And then...
Go on.
You were there! Dr. Zibbert.
In Gabriel's ramblings, he mentioned Dr. Zibbert, how the man tried to help Gabriel, but ultimately failed. Naturally, after exiting the Ascendant sequence, our next target becomes Dr. Zibbert himself. The warden hands us back our anchor, and we get after it. To the hospital we go, such is our calling.
Break a leg, traveler.
After traveling on foot to the nearby hospital, which luckily isn't too far from the subway base, you make your way along the sketchy cliff edges, which have convenient gravity pads set up on them, all thanks to your predecessors. After enough gravity flip-flopping to give you brain damage, you finally reach the hospital, and inside of it, that familiar golden rift. Entering the hospital, you find a radio signal on your little hand computer device. A woman's voice comes through. It's Veronica asking for help as she's stuck in an elevator on the 3rd floor. The traveler says that she's looking for Zibbert, to which Veronica responds that she's the one you want if it's information you're after. But she says she'll only answer your questions about the steelworks, the outbreak, and the other traveler if you help her escape the hospital. Problem is, she's blocked into the elevator shaft by an overwhelming amount of biomass circulating through the building. In order to have a chance of destroying it, you'll have to find 3 formulas, mix them together, and create a toxin, upon which you have to inject that toxin straight into the heart of the biomass. You do that, no biggie. And at last, you give it a little poke. After poisoning the meat, you fight a boss, and you find Veronica in front of some coagulated meat, what appears to be the remnants of Dr. Zibbert.
What caused the outbreak in the steelworks? Was it the Traveler?
No? Are you insane? The Pathfinder would rather die than harm us.
The Pathfinder?
That's what he called himself.
He can still help us find him.
Okay? So you are fucking insane. Look at him, damn it! No! No!
If I don't try, whatever is left of his mind will soon fade away. He will be gone forever, and with him, all the answers we need. The steelworks, the outbreak, his mission, my awakening. I need to make sense of it all. It's not worth giving up yet.
Once you extract Zibbert's essence, you have a bit of a malfunction on your return back to base, with visual and auditory hallucinations to boot. The essences are clearly taking a toll on your phylactery, which they're known to do, so the warden helps you to nullify them temporarily, saying that eventually in the long term they will take over your mind completely. Wait a second, it's just like Cyberpunk. Johnny, my boy! The Traveler insists on using the Ascendance thingy to speak to the essences again, but after activating it, instead of seeing Dr. Zibbert himself, you see Angela. She reveals that after you had started interrogating Edward, Angela left the shelter to reach the hospital while looking for her mother. She couldn't find her, but she did find Dr. Zibbert. She got infected, and likely at some point merged with Zibbert, which is made more evident by the fact that Zibbert begins communicating through her body, as if his essence is mixed with hers, and perhaps other people's. Before the sequence ends, you prod with one last question. Did your kind bring the disease? To which Zibbert responds,
I believe it was always here, waiting.
During the Ascendance sequence, we learned from Zibbert that he hid the Visitor, or who we're now calling the Pathfinder, with his daughter Eliza at the Abbey, a monastery of sorts. Naturally, Eliza becomes your next and ultimately final target. In order to reach the Abbey, you've got to power up another tram. Good times. Once you do that, it's off to the totally not cursed and haunted Abbey we go. Oh, what the fuck is that? So it turns out Dr. Zibbert's daughter, Eliza, yeah, she got infected, as did the whole goddamn monastery. And when you finally puzzle solve your way into the main church, you find Eliza herself, with enough arms and accompanying fingers to flip you off hundreds of times, all at once. Though, instead of taking the opportunity to do something that cool, she instead just sends a bunch of minions after you and creams all over the floor with toxic green goo. Oh, and she calls you a pilgrim for some reason. Anyway, once you beat the shit out of her, Eliza fucking dies, and you discover the Pathfinder at last. Yeah, he's dead. Also, he has the same number designation as the Warden. What the fuck? Shrugging that aside for now, bro did leave a message behind before he kicked the bucket, so that was nice of him.
This is a warning, as I no longer believe in the validity of the vocation. Maybe it is to my own misfortune that I got close to people. I don't think our work helps them become a better being. They are perfect now, in their imperfection. I won't let them be put together into the cogs of a machine that dehumanizes them. Don't trust in the collective. All that matters to them is their own hunger.
TLDR, the Pathfinder was all cool with the Collective's mission until the point where Veronica was assigned as his target. From there, I guess he just fell in love with her, because after he got captured, she really touched his empty soul vessel by how nice she was to him during his interrogation. From there, he was just like, fuck the Collective, my vocation doesn't mean shit, and after being taken to the Abbey, where he seemed to be straight up slaughtered by Eliza and her meat army, he died, only after his message explaining that he found a way to stop the endless mission of the Collective. No more awakenings, no more extractions. How he did this, we don't know. So the only thing left to do is to grab his body and run. When you arrive at the base, you realize something isn't right. The change has found its way inside, and the warden's workshop is empty. Wandering through the station, you explore rooms you didn't know about until now, putting the pieces together that the warden has been hiding something from you this whole time. Then you find the bodies, representative of countless trials, tests, repeated again and again to accomplish something. But what exactly?
Number 320. Essence implementation successful. Lazarus protocol successful. Traveler NG-3576 operational.
It's
You.
What have you done?
That escalated quickly. So let's get this straight. The warden, or rather the Pathfinder, was a traveler who had this sickle that could open up rifts, a unique tool not all travelers had. Bro seemed to be opening rifts either for other travelers to then do their work or to also do the same work himself, but at some point he received a target, Veronica. When he traveled through the rift and was captured, after Veronica warmed up to him and treated him like a person, he developed an obsession with her, beginning to believe that she and her determination to save humanity from the disease would be enough to literally do just that, to save humanity. At least that was his hope. He wanted to bring her back from the past into the future, but when he did this, it seemed to not work for some reason. His only other solution then became, by some means, to transfer her mind into the body of one of his own kind, a traveler. He scavenged the parts from those who had fallen and tried again and again until one day he made you. How exactly these experiments were conducted, we don't know. I mean, shit, did he somehow fabricate everything in your original sarcophagus that made it seem as if the collective had just deployed you? How much of it was real versus what he caused to happen? That much is unclear. What we do know is Bro just pulled some convenient shit out of his ass, and by simply touching his past body, which you conveniently laid on that table, he transferred his mind into it, making a really funny sound at the same time. And sickle in hand, the Pathfinder opens up a rift to somewhere. We might as well follow him through, right? Our man said he's gonna do it all over again, but we're all like, not if we have something to say about it. And we eventually come across Veronica. We try and warn her that the Pathfinder is trying to take her and do a bunch of experiments and shit on her, which, mind you, the Traveler herself basically lived through, with fragments of failed experiments bleeding through into her psyche. But Veronica's just like, nah, he's like my boyfriend now. And you're all like, what? Before he punches you with the might of a surprisingly agile Irishman. It is then time to battle. You put a lot of lead in this man, and him and Veronica beg you to stop. It's here where you're presented with two choices. Technically 3 on New Game Plus mode, but we're gonna get into that. Ending A has you finish him off, putting one last bullet in the dude before taking his sickle, opening a rift back for Veronica to return to the 80s, where she then bangs on Edvard's door, hugs him, and it's revealed that she's infected. So basically everyone is doomed. Oh, and also this ending promptly Thanos snaps yourself and the now dead Pathfinder out of existence, because by killing him, you seemingly changed the time loop that is ending B. This second choice, allowing him to live, sees the Pathfinder and Veronica also opening a rift and traveling back in time to the 80s, except something's very wrong. Veronica is turning. While travelers can go through rifts just fine, it seems that a regular person can't, at least not without the change affecting them. With no other option left, the Pathfinder extracts Veronica's essence, and we can assume the cycle continues, this marking the latest beginning of his obsession with rebirthing her, until eventually he creates you, which only leads to the same endpoint every time. Except as it turns out, there is one possibility where the cycle can be truly broken, without the depressing end we get in ending A. But as I feel rather overloaded with information right now, let's just take a second to breathe and talk about the big picture before revealing the final and most likely canon ending to Cronos: The New Dawn. That was a lot, and if you're confused, allow me to give my best interpretation of what I think the story is all about, as well as how the New Game Plus ending pans out and why I think it's the true ending compared to the first two. Cronos is about more than just time travel. The game's message, while cryptic, centers around collectivism, and while the scope of the narrative is massive with the apocalyptic threat that is the change, it narrows that scope the further you get towards the end, as the focus on the collective group being prioritized over individual members is both refined and rejected at the same time in a pitiful story of personal contradiction. The Pathfinder becomes obsessed with Veronica and came to the conclusion that any fate is better than no fate. He wanted to reject the collective's goal with the Vocation, which would have seen him uploading or ascending Veronica's essence into the collective, effectively the same result as what the Change wanted, to simply merge all humans. Yet by refusing to give up on Veronica, refusing to let her die and simply succumb to the Change, he is, in a way, doing exactly what the collective themselves are doing, forcing a fate onto another, which at first Veronica was open to, up until the moment she gets transported to the future and is succumbing to the infection, at which point she outwardly rejects having her essence extracted. And we see through the Traveler's own flashbacks and memory just how painful Veronica's future is from then on. Luckily though, her endless torment is not quite endless, because as I said before, there's a third ending to the game, one which you can get after playing through the whole thing in the New Game Plus mode you unlock for beating the game the first time. In the third ending, Begin Anew, you realize that you're in a loop.
And be free.
What?
It already happened. It's happening all over again. Somehow, it always ends here.
Maybe she's right. Go. Take her. There's still a chance. For both of you.
The Warden agrees. Perhaps the way to save Veronica is to have you, the Traveler, open the rift and take her with you. The option that none of them had tried yet because they were each too concerned with their own goals. In agreement, the Traveler and Veronica leave the Pathfinder behind and enter the rift. The next thing we see is what appears to be the door to a sarcophagus opening.
Welcome, Veronica. It's time.
What does this mean? Well, perhaps that Veronica, the human version, manages to survive the travel through the rift, though where the story could possibly go from here, I have no idea. But this New Game Plus ending is, I believe, the canon one, because it's the only option that doesn't result in a time loop. And you might be wondering, well, hold on. The ending where both the Traveler and Pathfinder get Thanos snapped and Veronica goes back to the 80s to succumb to the Change, how could that result in the same events happening? Well, here's the thing. There's a good chance that the collective was born from the Change, and that inevitably it came to be born with enough time after the Change took its course. This is backed up with evidence from discussions you can have with the Warden, where he says this.
Although the change seems cruel and painful, it is what led to the collective origin in the finale. Like a hideous cocoon from which the new face of the human race blossomed.
What that means is that both ending A and B are most likely time loops, because either way, if you kill the Warden, once Veronica entered the rift back through to her time, the collective would still come to exist, as would the Warden, and the same choices would be made, with the Traveler leading to the same ending being chosen, ending A, or ending B, which itself is more of a shortcut, leading essentially to the same fate, the same choice, the same final confrontation, except when you choose option C, where both Veronicas appear to have a chance to begin anew. And with that, we conclude the full story of Cronos: The New Dawn. Naturally, there are a lot more details that I didn't cover in this video. I didn't talk much about the Barika family at the Steelworks, theories on the Change potentially originating from a 14-kilometer deep hole, and we kind of skimmed over the weird cult at the Abbey, but I seriously encourage you to play through the game itself, because it is pretty damn amazing, at least as a first game in what I hope becomes a series. Please make this a trilogy, guys. I'm begging you, Bloober Team. I'd like to give a big thanks to my patrons and YouTube members here, and if you enjoyed this video, slap the like button, because such is your calling. Do it. Also, check out this lore video on the left here. You might like it. Or you could also just check out our Story Explained playlist on the right. Come on, make a choice. Click. Do it. Okay, bye.